The iron door should never have sounded like that, like a dying creature when pressed, like a strained lung begging for air. I remember standing there with the others in the stairwell, my palms still cold from the morning, staring at the metallic frame as if it were breathing. The entire door had been welded shut from the inside, not blocked, not jammed, welded, and not cleanly either. The seams bubbled with uneven burns, as if whoever had done it had worked in frantic, trembling desperation. The welds still glimmered faintly, cool now, but recently molten. A man beside me rammed his shoulder into it. "Push harder! I have a doctor's appointment in an hour," he barked, red-faced and sweating. An old woman shrieked back, her voice sharp as broken glass. "What good will that do? The door won't open." Another man wiped his brow with a trembling hand. "It's pointless," he muttered. "The metal's cold. Whoever welded this door shut. Finished a while ago. Nothing less than a power saw is getting it open." That's when panic started blooming. Quiet, shaky panic that spreads like mold. "An hour? We're going to be stuck here an hour?" Another woman gasped, her voice climbing to an almost inhuman pitch. "I can't stay here. I need to get to work. Everyone needs to get to work," the man snapped. "But unless you want me to magically become a blowtorch, you'll have to deal with the reality that we're locked inside." "So what then? We stay here because some kid's prank?" Her scream hit a frequency that vibrated through my skull. But the welder, the one who had been inspecting the seams, shook his head. "This isn't a prank," he said, voice low, unsettled. "I've been welding for 17 years. Whoever did this knew what they were doing, but they also did it fast, nervous, maybe drunk, but definitely intentional." Silence washed over the group like ice water. Someone had locked themselves inside, trapped themselves with the rest of us. But why? And who? A voice from the back muttered what we were all thinking. Some maniac. That was when the old woman turned toward me, slowly, suspiciously, her rheumy eyes narrowing into slits. "You!" she hissed, grabbing my sleeve with bony fingers. "Where are you from? I don't recall seeing your face." "Did you do this? You and your worthless friends, planning to rob us, kill us?" Her shrill accusations spread like wildfire. Faces turned toward me, eyes sharpened with fear and anger. A dozen strangers suddenly imagining me with a welding torch in the night. I raised my hands quickly. "I'm Tamerlan. I live in apartment 87. I'm Vera Sylvan's grandson. I've lived here for a year. I just came down from my floor." "Leave him alone, old hag," someone barked from the back. "I've seen the kid dozens of times. Good guy, helped me carry groceries more than once." Humiliated, the woman bit her tongue, but her glare lingered, sharp, venomous. That was when the buzzing started. Someone was ringing doorbells frantically along the first-floor corridor. "Open up!" a voice shouted from outside, followed by thick pounding. "Hello? Can you help me? The door won't open!" The weld had sealed not just from our side, but his side too. Whoever locked us in had locked him out. People rushed to press their ears against the metal. "Maybe he can help." "He can't, idiot. The door is welded shut." "What's he doing out there so early? Ask him to call for help." A dozen voices rose, all useless, tangled, panicked, and then the man outside screamed. A scream so full of raw terror, it silenced all of us instantly. The door rattled, something slammed into it from the outside with bone-shattering force. The stranger pounded the handle, sobbing, "Let me in, please." We couldn't see what he saw, but we heard it. A snarl, wet, guttural, massive, like metal grinding against bone, claws scraping stone, teeth clicking in anticipation, sharp, enormous teeth. "Run!" someone inside shouted. "Run while you can!" But it was too late. The impact shook the entire frame as the creature rammed the man into the door. His bones cracked against the metal. He shrieked, high, desperate, a sound I will never forget. We listened as something tore into him, ripping flesh, shredding muscle, grinding cartilage. He screamed until something crushed his windpipe. Then only chewing remained, slow, wet, delighted. The creature slammed the door again, testing its strength, searching for a way in. But the weld held. Silence fell. A suffocating, heavy silence none of us dared break. And then the sirens awoke. Old, rusty, forgotten air raid sirens, silent for decades, began to groan to life across the town. First low, like distant thunder, then louder, higher, screeching as their aging gears warmed. Those sirens were never meant to sound again. Not unless something catastrophic was happening. Not unless something was coming. Outside, the normal noises of the town dissolved. Car engines, dogs, voices, one by one they were swallowed into silence. People were evacuating, leaving us behind, locked inside, with something roaming outside, something that sounded almost human when it howled, until you heard the scream that always followed. And the worst part wasn't the scream. It was the silence that came after. A silence so thick it felt as if the world itself were holding its breath. No one spoke for a long time. Not even the old woman who always had something to say. Every tenant in that cramped stairwell stood frozen, afraid that even a whisper might draw the thing back. Afraid that it might already be listening. Someone finally exhaled shakily. What was that? No one answered, because every one of us knew the truth. That noise didn't belong to anything natural, not any animal we'd ever heard, not anything that should exist. The sirens outside wailed louder, rising into a shrill mechanical agony. Their pitch vibrated through the concrete, through the railing, through our bones. The building itself almost seemed to tremble under the noise. But beneath the sirens, beneath the metal scream, there was something else. A dragging sound, slow, heavy, like a massive body being pulled across asphalt. Then a thump, another, getting closer. Someone squeezed my wrist. I looked down. It was the same old woman who had accused me minutes earlier. Her eyes were wide now, glass wide with terror. "It's still there," she whispered. A deep shadow passed under the crack of the door, thick, wrongly shaped. The air seemed to vibrate. The metal frame groaned again as something brushed against it, something tall enough that its body scraped the entire height of the door. Then a breath. Not a human breath, not an animal one either. A slow, rattling inhale, like lungs filled with mud. One woman covered her mouth. A man placed his back against the wall as if preparing to faint. No one moved. No one dared. Another breath. Then a soft tapping on the door, not claws this time. Knuckles. Knock, knock, knock. A man behind me choked on his own spit. It can't think right? But the knocking changed. Became faster, more deliberate, more human. Knock, 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 and then open. A voice that sounded like the man who had been killed, but wrong, broken, as if someone were forcing sound through a ruined throat. "Open the door!" We backed up in unison, our feet scraping the concrete in a frantic ballet of fear. It spoke again, louder this time. "Open the door!" The last word twisted into a screech, so violent it pierced my skull. Someone fell backward and crawled away, sobbing. Another tenant clutched the railing as if it might lift him out of this nightmare. The creature slammed into the door, once, twice, again. The hinges shrieked under the pressure. Dust drifted from the ceiling. The welds groaned as if they were being peeled apart by brute force. A man, maybe in his 40s, finally snapped. He ran toward the stairs, shouting, "We have to get out! We have to get out!" People tried to grab him, but he tore himself free and sprinted up the stairs like a wild animal. We heard him reach the 3rd floor. We heard his steps slowing, then stopping. Silence. A new sound followed, a low creaking above, something moving on the roof, something large. Someone whispered to me, trembling, "No, no, 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 it was already inside. It must have climbed in before dawn." Before I could process that terrifying realization, before I could even breathe, a crack echoed through the stairwell. The man on the 3rd floor screamed, a scream that tore itself from his chest as if someone were ripping his voice out. Then the screaming stopped, cut off, like a switch flipped. We didn't see what took him, but we heard the sound, a wet, snapping crunch. Then another, the sound of something chewing, someone vomited, another person fainted, and still we didn't run, we didn't move, we stayed rooted in place because instinct screamed that movement meant death. Minutes passed, or maybe they were hours. Time twisted, stretched, shrank, all the while the thing on the third floor paced, slowly, deliberately. Heavy steps that made dust drift from the ceiling each time they shook the concrete. Tap, 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 like it was exploring, mapping the building, learning its layout. And us, we were cattle. Finally the steps stopped, then in the darkness above, its voice came again, this time clearer, wetter, more human, and more horrifying. Who is still alive? One of the women collapsed into sobs. The voice continued, twisting between tones. I smell warm blood. I smell fear. I am hungry. The lights flickered, once, twice. Then the entire building sank into darkness, total, black, silence. And in that suffocating void, something exhaled at the top of the stairwell. Not human, not even close. Something with breath hot enough to fog glass, thick enough that you could feel it on your skin. And then, the stairwell above us creaked as it began to descend. We were the only ones left. One step, another, slow, purposeful, coming down, coming for us. And then, the sound changed. The footsteps were no longer echoing like something heavy. They dragged. Shh, 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 as if its skin, or whatever covered its limbs, scraped against the concrete walls. A smell flooded the hallway before its shadow even appeared. Burnt iron, wet soil, and something sour, like breath leaking out of a corpse. The lights flickered once, twice, then stayed on, but dimmer, as if they were afraid too. No one spoke. No one dared breathe. Even the building felt like it was holding its breath. The dragging stopped just before the landing above ours. Silence. Not relief, not safety, waiting. Something shifted its weight, slow, deliberate, like it knew exactly where we were, like it was savoring the fear, radiating from behind our barricaded door. Then came the sound, a soft, unnatural tapping on the railing. Tap, tap, tap. Too slow for impatience, too controlled for an animal, too wrong to be human. I felt the air grow colder, as if the thing's presence absorbed all warmth. My breath floated in faint white clouds. And then I noticed something that made my stomach twist. The shadows weren't behaving right. The stairwell's light cast a long stretch of black across the floor, but the shape was impossible. Too many limbs, the torso elongated, and the head tilted at an angle no neck should allow. The shadow leaned forward. It listened. Then, a soft whisper sliding down the wall like oil. I hear you. The neighbors behind me gasped. One of them clapped a hand over her mouth, trembling violently, trying not to scream. But it was too late. The creature's shadow snapped toward our door like a whip. It knew. The footsteps resumed, faster now, eager, hungry, slamming into the stairs with a force that shook dust from the ceiling. Thump, 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 coming straight for us. The metal door vibrated, once, then again, then harder, something slamming against it with raw, unrestrained power. The hinges groaned. Screws rattled loose. Dust rained from the frame. Someone whispered, voice cracked, "It knows we're in here. God, it knows." The thing scraped its claws, yes, claws, along the door, tracing every inch of metal, slowly, deliberately, testing, studying, learning the shape of the barrier between us. And then a low growl, so deep it vibrated through the floor and into our bones. Not human, not even close. The growl grew into a distorted moan, then warped into something like laughter, but too broken, too jagged, too full of hunger to belong to anything living. Scratch! A long, violent drag of its nails. Boom! A hit like its entire body slammed the steel. The door buckled inward, just a little, but enough for us all to step back in terror. The creature inhaled sharply, snorting the air through the crack, smelling us, tracing us, choosing who it would tear apart first. And then, from the other side, through the tiny sliver of metal bending inward, a single yellow bloodshot eye stared back at us, unblinking, hungry, smiling without lips. The eye didn't just look at us, it studied us, measured us, tasted the terror vibrating from our skin. Its pupil darted from face to face, fast and insect-like, snapping movements that made my stomach twist. Every shift of its gaze felt like a cold finger dragging across my spine. Then the breathing started. A slow, rattling inhale, like air struggling through shattered lungs. Then a wet, gargled exhale that dripped down the metal as if the creature's breath were thick enough to smear. Someone behind me whimpered. The eye snapped toward the sound, locking onto the trembling woman like a predator, catching movement in tall grass. The door bulged inward, metal bending like clay under the pressure. The creature pressed its face closer. Through the growing crack, we saw more. Grey skin stretched too tight, veins pulsing like living cords, teeth far too many, scraping lightly against metal as if it wanted to savor the taste before biting through. Then it whispered, voice scraping like a blade dragged across bone. "I smell fear." The door groaned, screws spitting from the frame. Dust rained from the ceiling as vibrations thundered through the room. Boom! Another slam. The lights flickered, once, twice, then turned blood red for a heartbeat, a glitch that shouldn't have been possible, illuminating the monster's mouth, stretching open in a smile so wide the jaw nearly split. It wasn't trying to break in anymore. It was enjoying it. Enjoying the struggle, enjoying the fear, enjoying us. The eye rolled back for a moment, revealing only the milky whites, then snapped forward again, wider than before, dilated, trembling with anticipation. It wanted to see our faces when we died. The creature inhaled again, a long, greedy breath that felt like it was pulling the air directly out of our lungs. The sound deepened, turning into a guttural roar that shook the floor beneath our feet. Something cracked behind the wall, pipes trembling, plaster splitting. Then a new sound emerged. Click, 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 claws tapping on metal, not in frustration, not in anger, in rhythm, as if it were counting down. One tap for each life behind the door. The eye narrowed, the smile widened. The clicking sped into a frantic, grotesque drumming as the creature pressed its entire face into the gap, widening it millimeter by millimeter. We stepped back instinctively, but it didn't matter. It knew we had nowhere left to run. The creature gave one last inhalation, deeper than anything so broken should manage, its chest expanding monstrously, ribs cracking outward, skin stretching like rotten leather. Then it whispered one final word, low and intimate. "Run," not as a warning, but as an invitation, as a game. Before we could even scream, the metal frame snapped with a deafening shriek, and the door began to open, slowly, as if the creature wanted us to watch every second of our doom unfolding in front of us. The shadows twisted across the floor, claws slid into the room first, then the jaw, already drooling, then that horrible yellow eye twitching with starving anticipation. It stepped forward, and the lights went out, all of them. The final thing we heard before the darkness swallowed everything was its voice, inches from our faces. "I'm inside."